Hi everyone, welcome to the today's podcast, and today we are having Sanket with us. He is the COO of Sportz Interactive, and I welcome you, sir. And we can just get started with your introduction first.
Thanks, Chavi. My name is Sanket Sawkar. I'm COO and Group CTO Sports Interactive. Uh, my journey with Sports Interactive or my professional life as such spans 2 decades. I started off as a junior engineer. I passed out as a Bachelor of Science graduate. While I was in college, I was also pursuing this 3-year software engineering program that NIIT used to offer in those days, and I'm talking about the late 90s, early 2000s. And I got placed at this company, which was a web development agency, and that's where the idea of Sports Interactive was actually born. So I am working for the last 2 decades with the same set of people. This you know uh, so over all these years, I've seen this. Uh, you know, my journey over all these years has been at the intersection of sports, uh, fan engagement, technology, content, and that's what Sports Interactive brings all of these together through various mediums and platforms.
That sounds pretty amazing. And also, when we talk about Sports Interactive, there are more than 450 players in its team, and also the company covers over 40 sports worldwide. So in that case, how it is and how it actually got started, I'm very much curious to know, and I'm very much sure the listeners would also be happy to know more about it, that how it started and how was the ideation process at the same time.
Sure. So, like I said, uh, the company is almost, yeah, it's 20 years into the. We just celebrated 20 years in July, and we started off. Our beginnings were very humble. We started off from literally a garage in Amboli in Andheri. The shops or the galas that you see, that are attached to the buildings. We literally started there. And the idea for Sports Interactive happened because of certain like-minded people, including myself, happened to be there at the right place at the right time. Sports enthusiasts. One of the main reasons why I'm at Sports Interactive is passion for sport, passion for technology, and this was a place that offered me both. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here. And the idea for Sports Interactive came about at this the web development agency that I talked about, which I originally joined. And at that time, we used to manage these cricket portals, some pretty large publishers that we used to manage. Internet was new but was also booming. There was, everybody wanted to establish an identity on the internet, so everybody had a .com. So we had a couple of .coms related to the sports industry, and we had this awesome experience of serving this in a very passionate manner to fans, to sports fans. So ultimately, the people that interact and engage with what Sports Interactive builds are fans, and that's when we realized that this is a very niche segment. And from doing all sorts of web development work, we would build e-commerce websites, we would build fashion websites, we would build very simple corporate portals. But then when we realized the strengths that we have and the passion for sport that we all share, the founding members that shared, we said, why don't we put in all the focus and put in all these energies in doing something which is very specific and caters to the sports segment, to the sports industry. And we started off with working with a few clients, setting up the sporting destinations. So for publishers, we would develop an entire destination where a fan would come consume scores, statistics, commentary. And I'm talking about the early 2000s, where all of this was relatively new. The only way you could consume sports data or content was through television, through newspapers, and nobody had heard about mobile web, or the explosion of apps and what internet has done. But our roots are at the start of this whole internet boom, right? And we were the first to pioneer, to be the first to be on digital, right? You hear about digital transformation and everything moving to digital, but Sports Interactive has always been in this digital ecosystem. And way back in 2000 is where we took our first steps. We started working with publishers in India and internationally, setting up certain experiences for fans, so that they could come into the platform, they could consume live scores, they could read uh, commentary, they could experience a game, and added a lot of fan engagement layers. So that was how Sports Interactive started, with covering sports for fans on the digital platform. And then from there on, we moved on to add several verticals. Uh, like I said, we started off in Amboli in a garage in Andheri. We started off with covering cricket. There were about 10, 12 to 15 of us. Now we are 500 and counting. So that's the phenomenal journey that I have been a part of, and all of this has been on the back of uh, like I said, the passion that we share, and several like-minded people coming together. Even the people that work here, we generally do want to call out. If you're a sports fan, it's that much more easier for you to identify, to relate, and to build products and services that are very relatable to you, because you understand sport to some level. So we've been blessed with working with people whose first passion was sport, or it was technology, or it was content, and somehow it all came together. And we started doing a lot more of these products and services at scale. We started off with a handful of clients. Now we have over 140 customers across the world. So that's how Sports Interactive sort of started. And we are in our 20th year, but we're still very young as a company. We still are in that startup mindset, where for us, the culture, the way we treat and deal with our clients. We also always like to say we are thought partners, not just any other vendor, because we are here to solve a certain problem that helps them in their business. And some of those values have still continued down, whoever that has come and joined us.
That's so good to hear that, and also that's pretty true. And it feels so good when I hear that. Yeah, it's been it's been 20 years, and still you are have that mindset of startup. It means that you are treating your team like your friends, and not just employees or something like that. So
Hmm.
it feels so good when I hear something like that. And also I'm sure that listeners would also be loving that.
Yeah.
In that case, I wanted to know that, as you shared that you like working on the digital part. So when the pandemic happened, like
Hmm.
in I guess 2020, right? So in that case, how was it for you? Like, was it a really good thing for your company? Like, in your company's perspective, was it how was the graph that
Sure,
time that
sure,
you were facing? Yeah.
sure. I would first like to touch slightly on the startup and the employee and the culture that you mentioned, and then I'll come to the impact of the pandemic. So, Chavi, if you ever come down to our office, what you will see here is it's an open office. And, there is no hierarchical arrangement, or there are no cabins, or there are no cubicles. All of us, from the CEO to, to the junior most developer, we are all on the same floor. And it's an open office, right? And anybody and everybody is literally free to walk up to any of us, if they have whatever it is, just a casual chat, or any problem that they are dealing with. I think that is something that I'm very proud about, is that we've been able to retain that culture, that anybody, the newest intern in the system is, confident and can come up to us and talk to us. And that's what you will see here right throughout. So that's the culture, that we have, and we try very hard to preserve that culture. And the impact of pandemic, I will, there are several facets to that. uh, One of the first things is, when the pandemic happened, uh, suddenly you realized, you can't obviously come into work. There are going to be restrictions, and for all the, you know people, the technology, the logistics, and all of that, the first challenge that everybody was faced with is, how are we going to operate? Okay. And traditionally, the way businesses have been set up is, you are used to coming into physically at a workstation. There's a very defined setup, and there are guardrails around it which are not very flexible. And those and the kind of establishments that were in that mold, right, which had not entirely modernized, were thinking about, hey, we need to modernize certain things, we need to be on the cloud. The pandemic accelerated all of that. And I don't want to sound boisterous about it, but Sports Interactive fortunately was ahead of the curve already. Everybody here works off laptops. We all have moved on to this, in our mindset everything is cloud based. Nothing here, I can, even before the pandemic hit, the kind of business, or the nature of our business is, we had to always ensure, 24/7, 365 redundancy, planning for backups in case there's a failure, because at the end of the day we are powering some very critical live experiences for sports fans, and we cannot afford for that to, stop, or just stop in between, or I can't give somebody an excuse saying, hey, my guy couldn't travel because, it's the pandemic, the show must go on. And that's how a lot of people adapted, right? And so, we were confident that the establishment that was readied up until that point, technically cloud, or people being able to connect using their laptops through VPN, courtesy our IT team, and some foresight that also they had was, made it very easy for us to transition. So as soon as the pandemic hit, logistically, certain workstations, heavy duty workstations had to be shipped to people's home. But after that, it was a lot of, I we just had to engage with people a lot more through meetings and forums, just to make sure that, the ease and comfort of when you are physically seeing something, and how do you fulfill some of those, the same things, right? When you are working with a colleague here, you know what they are working on. It's just that much more harder when it is remote. So we, made sure that right from top down, the senior management and everybody invested a lot more time with people, right? People that I would have normally met once a quarter, for example, as a one-on-one. We just consciously ensured that all of us are meeting everybody as much as possible, and not just from, work perspective, but just generally getting a pulse of mental health, because that was one of the things which was very critical for us to, also have an eye out. While people are contributing, morale is high, there is also, mental health. The pandemic, you are locked up, you don't know, things are uncertain, you have bad news coming trickling through news channels, and all that chaos. And we just had to make sure that people were kept sane through all of this. And one major distraction was the steady stream of work that was anyways there, right? Sport had resumed in several quarters of several corners in the world, and Sports Interactive was delivering those experiences. People were, connected from homes. They had sacrificed family time. And those were, some of those amazing stories that I feel so proud of. Is, uh, uh, you know uh, people coming out in full support, and helping us through pandemic. The people made it happen. And as much as we tried to make sure, virtual sessions, anything and everything that we could do to keep people happy, de-stress them. That was one of the things we tried to ensure. And like I said, technically things were set up so we can, even before the pandemic, we could operate from any corner of the world. And now, even post pandemic, we have not enforced a policy where you need to be at work all days of the week. It's very flexible. We have given these options to people where, a couple of days in the week, they can come into work, and for the rest they can, work from home. And there's been talk about productivity, fatigue, and a lot of those challenges that we continuously have, pre-pandemic, pandemic, and post-pandemic, as have been, these various phases. And I believe, top down, the effort's always been to ride through all of this and succeed at it, and not be overwhelmed or overawed by the situation. So these are some of the things. I hope that made sense, Chavi.
That's actually true. And also, I I really want to appreciate on this thing, to be honest, because when pandemic happened, everything happened, everyone was so much worried, and they were not like, there were various companies and startups who were not able to understand how to handle all the employees in such a virtual space. Because obviously it's been more than for like, if I talk about the pandemic time, you were having like 18 years plus of experience with whole like office thing, and like suddenly everything is virtual. So
Yeah.
it's very difficult to handle that situation. And I'm very much happy that you handled it very nicely. And also it feels so good when the company suppose their employees on every aspect. So like, companies say that we are like helping you in the case of medical, but obviously there are various things that happens with an employee. Like, there is some emotional like there might be some like problems in their home or
Hmm.
anything like
Hmm.
that. So they
Yeah.
actually need mental support, they actually need some motivation every day, that yeah, we are working and we are very much happy there. So like, providing that environment is very much difficult, but at the same time you are doing it very nicely. So I'm really very glad to know that. And moving further with this, as you mentioned that that time it was good, but at the same time, like, people who are actually into sports, they were facing a lot of issues. So how you actually like helped the passionate people, like the sports passionate people, in uplifting in that pandemic time, like with your company, how you actually helped them, and like what were the strategies that you followed that time? Because ultimately you need to come up with something different suddenly because of the
Yeah.
pandemic. There might be various changes that you have faced. So what was the thought process and how you tackled everything?
So look, one of the first things that happened when pandemic hit globally was sport had dried up, right? For a sports fan, there was nothing to do. They were twiddling thumbs. For somebody who's used to following a match or a game of football or any sport in the world almost every day of the week, to having nothing was like, having withdrawal symptoms, right? When you're
Exactly.
addicted to something, and that is suddenly taken away from you, what do you do? So at that point in time, not just Sports Interactive, but a lot of, smart people around the world came up with various different ways to, substitute what else can be done to get people engaged with something, right? Give them a reason to talk about something related to sport, engage with banter, reminisce something which had happened. So of, the various things that we did was, reliving past glories, right? Let's say we created an entire environment where you could relive the 2011 World Cup final, India versus Sri Lanka, that you won. and we sort of replayed that whole thing ball by ball, created that whole atmosphere, maybe the even the 1983 finals that nobody, not many of us would have been there. And how do you virtually, or through digital tools that are available, how do you recreate that? So that got people talking. And the other thing was esports, right? When actual sport was not there, everybody got hooked onto esports and gaming. So because of the pandemic, a lot of fringe, or when esports or gaming wasn't really recognized, suddenly you realize that you can make an entire career out of just being a gamer, or being part of this gaming ecosystem. So what you realize is you don't actually need this physical games that are happening, but the people found a substitute with esports also. So there were esports tournaments that we organized. We let people come in and just literally watch two people playing, and we augmented that experience with data commentary, and predictors, and gamifying the whole experience. So those were some of the like you said, you had to think differently. So I would say these were some of the examples that we kind of came up with to give people a reason to come back and engage with sport.
That's so good to hear. Like, I really like this thought process, and I actually, I'm also a person who is into sports, and I'm pretty much sure there might be various listeners who were actually into sports, and it feels so good when you relive those moments when you were not there. So, reliving those final matches, those World Cup scenes were too good, and still when we come across any of that video, or we come across any of those highlights, we feel so connected. Though we were not there, but still we feel so connected. That thought process, that idea was really amazing. And also, when you know that we can't work on any of the physical games, then this thought process of reliving the moments was truly amazing. And I guess the people also loved it. And I do remember that people were talking about these things. And I guess Airtel 5G also did something like that. They also had an event related to this only, reliving those moments.
Correct.
So that thought process is pretty much amazing. And also, moving further with that, I guess listeners would also be happy to understand one more thing from you, that when we talk about sports, so nowadays there's a huge hype of esports, but at the same time there are people who says that esports is not good because you are just sitting on your laptop or your PCs or your mobile phones and having those things 24/7, and it's not good for health. So there are various things that people used to say. So in that case, how you actually encounter these things, and also like to your perspective, what could be the future of esports, and how esports is actually working in present, because you are in this industry, so you actually know the whole ground reality of all these things.
Hmm. Right. So look, I wouldn't comment too much on the the side effects or the hazards, because everything in moderation always works, especially exposure. When you talk about fatigue, and some other ailments that arise out of continuous exposure to playing esports. I think that's just a that's a hazard, and of course it can be controlled. But look, uh, uh, I think at the end of the day, it's a game of skill. People that are gamers are highly skilled, and they invest in just like how an athlete trains or invests in equipment. I think it's the same mindset and mentality when it comes to gamers as well. They would have the best postured seats, the best equipment, and tech savvy for sure. And uh, there are several uh, sporting teams have esports equivalents of those. There are like Formula One has an entire esports equivalent, and it's it has a huge audience. So imagine, while there's an actual physical real Grand Prix and there are championship winners, there's a whole cult following now for esports Formula One winners as well. And who knows, one of those days, or maybe it's already happened, is you'll have one of these gamers actually transition from virtual to real. So uh, there are so many possibilities that could happen with esports gaming. Again, like I said, through the pandemic, it exploded from being on the fringe to coming mainstream. A lot of OTT platforms also have started streaming esports. So while uh, the pandemic has given it a boost, we are yet to see how and how much the momentum lasts now that people are going back to reality. Stadiums have opened up, a lot of things have gone back to being normal. But you never know when the next such global pandemic is around the corner, now that you've seen what can happen with COVID. So I think the boundaries between virtual and physical are going to be blurred. Digital is going to be a lot more relevant in terms of experiences, even learning, right? A lot of learnings now happening out of this. Digital is the medium, and what I'm doing on esports or gaming is I'm basically engaging with something which is not physical, but of course stimulating enough, but it's all happening on digital. And that just seems to be the way the trend's moving. Of course, there's no I'm not saying that physical sport is not going to happen, far from that. But the percentage, or the up the popularity or the familiarity with this is definitely on the upswing, and it's going to continue.
That's good to hear because, like various esports, enthusiasts are somehow scared at the same time because they are scared that what if, the huge companies stop doing these tournaments and doing these great events, what would happen to them that time. But at the same time, we have people like you who are actually have that passion in themselves, that yeah, that you are actually coming up with more and more great initiatives of esports and you are actually promoting it. And at the same time, you are working on the real time sports and also on the virtual thing. So it actually motivates the people who are into sports, because there are people who are not that much healthy, might be handicapped, or due to some situation they are not able to play sports physically, but they have an option now, is of the esports, so they can sit on their PCs and play sports and show their skills to
Of
everyone.
course, of course.
Exactly. So ending this podcast on a good note, would love to hear something from you related to esports, and what are your views on both the things, and also is there any future a future initiative that you might be coming up in your company? Would be happy to know that.
Sure. I mean, see, we've only touched the tip of the iceberg, especially in India. And like I said, it's going to continue. And, we want to, this is still something we are exploring as to what all avenues can a Sports Interactive be keenly involved with, right? From being data providers to providing fan engagement layers for the esports games, conducting tournaments, maybe being part of this ecosystem is something we are even we are trying to fit all the pieces of the puzzle. And yeah, I mean, it's there on our roadmap. Maybe 2 to 3 years down the road, maybe there's a lot more that we are doing with esports than what we are engaged with at this point.
Great. Thanks a lot for coming in. And I guess this podcast would help a lot of listeners to understand more about the Sports Interactive, and also more about the things that are coming up in the future. And your thought process is truly amazing and surely would be motivating a lot of people around the globe. So thanks a lot for joining in, and it was really great having you for the podcast.
Pleasure.
And thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot for having me.